Hi, this is Al Bostick, and welcome to Bedtime, Buckaroos. Today's book is Bubba the Cowboy Prince, a Fractured Texas Tale by Helen, Ketteman, and illustrated by James Wahola. Once, a strapping young fella named Bubba lived on a ranch with his wicked stepdaddy and his hateful and lazy stepbrothers, Dwayne and Milton. Bubba's stepdaddy spoiled Dwayne and Milton to no end, but Bubba worked from sunup to sundown doing the chores of 3 ranch hands. Bubba never complained, though. He loved ranching. Dwayne and Milton spent their days sitting on horseback bossing Bubba around. "Get them doggies along there, Bubba," ordered Dwayne. "Yeah, and watch out for them cow pies," added Milton. "You know how Daddy hates it when you track up the house." Now, Ms. Lurleen, who lived down the road a piece, was the purtiest and richest gal in the county. She owned the biggest spread west of the Brazos, and she loved ranching too. But it was lonesome work. And after a while, she decided it was time for some companionship. "I aim to find myself a fella," she said, "one who loves ranching as much as I do. And it wouldn't hurt if he was cute as a cow's ear either." Ms. Lurleen decided to throw a ball. She sent invitations to all the ranchers in Texas. Soon the day of the ball arrived. Milton and Dwayne spent all day getting gussied up in their finest duds. Bubba ran himself ragged waiting on them. "Bubba," shouted Dwayne, "fetch me my bolo tie." Bubba shouted Milton, "Get my boots polished." "Bubba," shouted his wicked stepdaddy, "brush them horses and wash that wagon." By the time Dwayne and Milton and their wicked stepdaddy were ready to go, Bubba was exhausted. Still, as they climbed into the wagon, Bubba asked, "Can't you wait for me to get ready? I want to dance with Miss Lurleen too." Dwayne and Milton, to their wicked daddy, hooted and hollered. "Why, you're sorrier than a steer in a stockyard," said Dwayne. "Can you imagine Miss Lurleen dancing with the likes of you?" said Milton. "Miss Lurleen wouldn't even wipe the dirt clods off her boot with that raggedy shirt of yours. And you smell more like cattle than the cattle do." Bubba took a look at himself. It was true. He didn't have a decent shirt to wear. His boots were downright disgraceful, and he did smell a bit rough. Milton and Dwayne were right. Miss Lurleen wouldn't dance with the likes of him. Bubba hung his head. He felt lower than a rattlesnake in a gully. Milton and Dwayne and their wicked daddy went on off to the ball. Bubba mounted his horse and headed to the pasture to check on the herd. The sky was getting darker than a black bull at midnight. It looked like a Texas thunderstorm was brewing. Bubba had just arrived to the cow pasture when a bolt of lightning struck, knocking him off his horse. Bubba was stunned for a moment, but when he picked himself up, he heard a voice, Go to the ball, Bubba," said the voice. Bubba looked around. No one was there except him and the cow. Now, Bubba figured he'd bumped the bejeebers out of his head, 'cause the voice was coming from a cow. She chewed her cud for a moment, then said, "I'm your fairy god cow, and I can help you go to the ball." Bubba sat up, rubbed his head. "Well, I'd like to go, Miss God Cow, but shoot, I don't have a thing to wear." The fairy god cow swished her tail, and Bubba's raggedy clothes turned into the handsomest cowboy duds he'd ever laid eyes on. His jeans were crisp, his boots were shiny, his shirt was dazzling, and his Stetson was whiter than a new salt lick. "Why, I look downright purty," said Bubba. The fairy god cow swished her tail again, and a nearby steer turned into the most beautiful white stallion Bubba had ever seen. "Now you go on off to the ball, Bubba, and have a good time dancing with Miss Lurleen. But you'd best be home by midnight, 'cause that's when the magic runs out." "Yahoo!" shouted Bubba, and he jumped on his white horse and galloped off to the ball. When Bubba arrived, the hoedown was in full swing, but every time Miss Lurleen finished the dance, she yawned. "There goes another $10 Stetson on a 5-cent head," she complained. "Where are all the real cowboys?" By the time it was Bubba's turn to dance with Miss Lurleen, it was almost midnight. Soon as she saw Bubba, Miss Lurleen's eyes lit up. "Why, you're cute as a cow's ear," she said. Bubba blushed, then took Miss Lurleen in his arms and started dancing. Dwayne and Milton turned purple with jealousy. "Who is that dude?" said Dwayne. "I don't recollect seeing him before, but he looks a mite familiar," said Milton. "Do something," said their wicked daddy. "That cowboy is winning Miss Lurleen's heart." As it turned out, Milton and Dwayne didn't have to do a thing, because Bubba and Miss Lurleen were in the middle of a do-si-doing when the clock struck midnight. Suddenly, Bubba's fine duds turned into dirty rags that he usually wore around the ranch. He looked sorry and he smelled worse. "What is that awful smell?" said Milton. "Why, it's Bubba," shouted Dwayne. Bubba turned 14 shades of red, apologized to Miss Lurleen, and ran out the room. "Wait!" she yelled, chasing after him. But Bubba didn't wait. He jumped on his cow and lumbered off into the night. In a ruckus, he'd lost one of his dirty cowboy boots. Miss Lurleen clasped it in her arm. "This is the boot of a real cowboy. The man I want to marry, I aim to find him." Miss Lurleen went back inside, and though she asked everybody at the ball, nobody knew who the mysterious cowboy was. Nobody except Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy, that is, but they weren't talking. The next day, Miss Lurleen went from ranch to ranch looking for the cowboy who owned the boot. When she came to Dwayne and Milton's ranch, both brothers tried the boot on, but it didn't fit. Miss Lurleen had just climbed on her horse to leave when Bubba rode up. He was dirty and sweaty and smelly from working with the cows, and he was only wearing one boot. Miss Lurleen jumped off her horse and ran over to Bubba. "Try this on," she cried. Bubba took his dirty old boot and pulled it on. "Much obliged, ma'am," he said, blushing. It fit perfectly. "You're my prince in cowboy boots," shouted Miss Lurleen. "I'd recognize that smell anywhere. Marry me, cowboy, and help me work my ranch." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy threw chicken fits, but Bubba just smiled, and he and Miss Lurleen rode into the sunset. They lived happily ever after, roping and cow poking and getting them doggies along. Thank you for watching Bedtime Buckaroos, and we'll see you next time.